Okay, I'm going to spend about 10 minutes and show you how you can use a template in Dreamweaver to create a website or even your web if you want. You can also Google and find all kinds of free templates and styles online. So the first thing I'm going to do when I create a website is I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to create a folder. I already did. I'm just going to call this template, and within the folder I'm going to create another folder for my CSS file and then one more for my images. And this is a process I tend to follow every time. The next step I would do is I would actually go through and set up my site definition. So I'm going to actually just manage this because I've already done this. I'm going to click edit. Actually, we'll remove it and we'll pretend we're going to do a new one. So I'm going to do a new site, template, and you would call this, third website, whatever you want. Generally try to have no spaces and try to avoid capital letters in your file name. And select that, hit select, and under the images, and then I'm going to hit, and keep in mind I'm in the advanced tab, and hit remote information. I'm going to go through my steps here. Make sure I hit SFTP, gonna hit OK, hit done. And just to start, to get everything going, I'm going to connect and I'm going to create a folder called template, just so I have that. In this case, I'm just going to go back, manage sites. I'm going to edit that. I'm going to get a remote, and I'm just going to add template. Okay, now I'm ready to go. I'm going to hit done. I'm going to minimize back, and now I'm back in Dreamweaver. So once I have that set up, I'm ready to go. I'm going to go to File, then New. Then under this, there's a lot of options over here that you could choose. What I'm going to do, and just be aware of, all these different things that you could play with. And you can, choose something from one of these samples. So I could choose, let's say, something that, let's say that. And I could hit create, and I could start working right from this. But what this is going to do is create a framed page. And frame pages work for some sites like eCollege, but for the most part, I'm not a fan of them. So in this case, I'm not going to do that, but I just wanted to illustrate that. But I'm going to go to File, New, and I like to choose from the blank template, HTML, and they have a lot of options over here. And so I can go down here and look for one that looks right. So I'm going to choose one that has left sidebar, header, and footer. That looks right. And this tells me this is a %, so that's going to expand. That's a set. And then over here, a set width, that is. My layout for CSS, I can add it to the head so that if I was only going to do one page, I might do that. But if I'm going to create multiple pages, I'm just going to create a new CSS file. Or if I already had one, I could link to it. But I'm just going to hit create new and hit create. First wants me to say, well, where do I want to put the CSS file? I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to call this template. Okay. And so when it comes up, I can see that this is my basic page, and I can go to code and I can see what it looks like and go back to design. But I also have this other option here for template. When I do that, I can edit my code, my CSS code here, and it's going to adjust it here. Also on the right, I have my CSS window open, and that gives me the ability to, if I click on, say, this sidebar, I can look over here and I can see that my sidebar is selected, and I could choose font and change the font, etc. So be aware that there's multiple ways that you can adjust your CSS. But in this case, I like to keep this view where I have my CSS selected, and I like to select on my page what I want to change. So in this case, I'm selecting to the left the body, and I can even go down here and select body if I wanted to, but and it brings it up here so I can look at the background, for instance, and so I like to put my mouse in here. If I go back and hit a space, it'll prompt me what do I want to do. I want to change the color, the background, so let's say something really dark like that. And then I can do the same thing. Let's say that the sidebar here, I don't want it to be gray. I could click on that, and even down here I can see, well, that's the sidebar. It looks like background's there, so I'm going to change this. I'm just going to get rid of it actually. So then it has a white background. I'm going to go back to my sidebar. I'm going to change the font. Maybe I want Arial to be my primary font, so I'm just going to go up here and delete Verdanda. And click on here, my main content, make sure that looks, so it did make the Arial change throughout. That looks good. Okay, so now I can even come over here, get rid of this text, and maybe home. I'm going to do a shift enter, page 1, shift enter, page 2, shift enter, page 3, and if I wanted to, generally you shouldn't have to say navigation, but just to illustrate a point, I'm going to call this home. That looks good. I could change my footer information, whatever I wanted it to be. Last updated. I could also, if I wanted to, I wouldn't even have to do that. I could do something like, trying to think of a good way to do this. And this isn't really a good example, but I think you get kind of the idea. And I could look over here and I could add a property if I wanted to, but I'm just gonna, looks like text aligns left. I'm gonna change that to right, but that actually does the whole body, so I'm gonna actually do a undo. Actually, my undo is not changing anything. I actually got rid of it, so I'm going to redo my typing for Word, and I'm going to go back to my text align. That's for my body. Oops, cancel. I'm going to change that, but just I could do more, but keep in mind, I mean, a shift, one easy way to do it is if I don't want to mess with the CSS, and usually I'll go back and forth. Hardcore CSS people do everything as CSS. So special characters, I can look, a non-breaking space is a Control-Shift space, so I can hit that, Control-Shift space, so I can keep doing that. So this is one, really lazy way of viewing HTML rather than CSS to control the page. But I'm just trying to illustrate the point here of how you can quickly use a template to. Alright, so now maybe this text here, I could maybe want to choose a right alignment, do something like that. What else might I do? At this point, maybe I want to get a header image. So I could go find an image, or I could even create one. So let's do File New, and let's take a look at how big this is. It looks like it's 967, but let's just double check. Header. Look at the container. Let's actually, where are we? Width, it's actually set to 80%, so I'm actually going to change that to 900, let's say. Really could be whatever I wanted. Pixels. Alright, so now I know I need to make this 900. Let's say 150, and I will do trying to think of a different color, but that's still blue. Hit OK, and then I can just add my text. So before we talked about how to use an image, but you don't always have to use an image. So So I might do something like this, make it bigger, and then just keep playing with it. Just need to hit my, actually that's not what I want to do. Sometimes when I create these, I feel like if you've ever had someone watch you type and you feel like you just keep making errors, that's sometimes how I feel like sometimes when I create these. Like right now I can't seem to get this to go, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, and because we're videotaping, we'll just go a little smaller. Let's change this to 55 and see if we like that. We do. So then I'm just gonna come up here, center it, bring it over here to the right. I could change the colors if I wanted to, so I could play with that. So the point being is you don't always have to get real fancy with a template. So let's say that even for aesthetics purposes, and keep in mind use all caps very sparingly. I tend to only do it in certain type of banners or for real aesthetic reasons, but I'm just going to save this into my folder, into my images, and call it a banner. I'm comfortable using a PNG file. Some really old browsers don't support it, but it's rare. So then I go over here, I delete the text, I insert my image, okay, so now, actually, yeah, I wasn't paying attention. So see, now I can look at my source file, and it's actually doing it relative, so I'm going to actually just get rid of this file. I need to pay attention more. And actually, it's largely because I haven't saved this, so I'm going to do that first. So let's, and that should have been the first thing we did actually, save as, and it's saying that template doesn't have editable regions. That's fine because we're actually not going to save it as a template. A DWT is a Dreamweaver template. We're going to actually save it as an HTML file, and we're going to do index.html, and I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to put my image in it. Okay, and so you'll notice that there's this padding around here, so I need to click on the header, and I can see down here that I'm clicked on it. Over here I can see that there's basically this 10 pixel, so I'm just going to put 0, 0, 0. Let's see what that looks like. That looks okay. And I could even also play with this more, but for now this serves my purpose. So I'm going to do a save. And actually what it does when you do a save is it's going to give you this, do you want this template thing. So I ignore this, I hit cancel, and I just do a save as. You want to replace it, I do. Take a look at what this looks like. So I can take a look, and it looks decent. You can see that that's one of the problems when I use the HTML spacing is it didn't adjust this when I made this bigger, but I could easily just go back and do this more. Oops. And you could use images. I'm not saying this is the way to, the only way or the way to do this, but I just want to illustrate to you how. And notice I'm doing a save as, and I'm replacing over it. Now, what I would do is I'm going to put a title, home, and now I'm going to do a save as and call this page 1. And then I'm going to page 1 up here, page 1, Do a save as again. Do I want to overwrite? I do. Alright, so now I'm going to do a save as. Call this page 2. So I think you understand what I'm doing right now. Just repeating these steps. And obviously there are a lot of ways to do it. And some people really like the default Dreamweaver template. I don't like it because what it does is it forces editable regions and other regions are locked. I think you'd use a formal Dreamweaver template when you wanted to put a site up that you didn't want anyone else to mess up. But in my case, I find that annoying, so I'm going to do page 3, and save. So just like that, see, I want to do a save as. Previous versions, it didn't prompt you exactly like this. Alright, so now I'm going to go back to my index, my home, and I'm going to click on the HTML, and I'm going to link. So this, I want to just go to the home page that I'm on. This, I want to go to page 1. This, I want to go to page 2. This, I want to go to page 3. Save as. Alright, so now I'm going to repeat these steps for page 1. I'm going to follow these same steps. Link to index. You can see it, it should take you 5 minutes to go through all of these, but you can see how quickly, relatively speaking, I've just set up a page. I've tinkered with it, CSS a little. Ideally, I would have chosen my color scheme from either one of the color websites or from maybe some company branding, but you get the idea. Following these steps a little further. Looks like there's actually a space there. And I can always go to split view. If I find weird things are happening, I can always play with that. Looks like the way that the paragraph tag is. This might be what's doing that. But let's just move on. And those are the types of things you really want to get situated before you start adding all the links. But for this purpose, I think it works fine. Just to illustrate how you would take a Dreamweaver template and adjust it to your own. Okay. Alright, so at this point, save all, and I'm going to view it. So now, if I click on home, I can see I'm at home. You can see it says home up top. Click page 1, page 2, and then I could go through these same steps, and I'm not going to repeat all this right now, but I could, let's go back to home, do the same thing down here. Forward could be to page 1 if I wanted it to go in a certain way. Home could be to the index page. So some people with the first page won't have a back button, so they might do something like that, but you get the idea. So just like that shows you how easy, hit cancel. So you don't want to do the save, but if I do save all, you'll see it works fine. But other things, and I'm not going to repeat all these, but just be aware how you can play with this more and more. I can go to the container if I wanted to, and I could add a margin over here. I could do different things. It looks like the border color is, I could play with that. And sometimes if you don't know the exact code, you can always, if I click back down here, I can always click on CSS and I can play with, maybe I want to do something like that, 666, and I can undo it, and so I know. Actually, that didn't work real well, did it? Let's change that back. black. Alright, so what I was trying to show you, see my mind's all over the place, is I can get an idea of what the colors are by using my picker, though it's ideally you know these ahead of time, but then I can play with those as I see fit and just keep tinkering. Tinkering away is kind of the way you go. But you can get an idea of how quickly I can create a basic interface where I have my border, I have my basic navigation on the left, my content, if you will, here on the right. I can have added navigation if I want. Sometimes that's needed, sometimes it's not. So just like that, I showed you how to quickly do this. So now to take it the one step further, I would be able to expand this, connect, and if I pull this out, I can see it's all in this template folder. So in this case, I'm just gonna, and you can see, did I really do that? I just want to check something. And checking is really the way to go. I did. So looks like it created a folder. Everything's within this folder called templates, which is fine. I didn't realize I did that. I guess I'm going faster than I wanted to. But I'm just going to hit all of these. I'm going to drag them over, or I could just hit put. Do you want dependent files? I do. So now I always like to check to see did everything kind of turn out the way that I thought it should. You should always check your links to make sure everything's working. So I called that template. And that looks like, yeah, templates. There it goes. So now this is online. If I hit forward, I can see that everything's working the way. If I didn't like this file structure, I could always go back into Dreamweaver and play with that. You know, if I take these and pull it out, it says, are you sure you want to remove the selected files? Yes. And I could do that, and I believe when you do that, it fixes the links. I haven't done that in a while, so let's see if I'm right. And it doesn't, so I'm wrong. So I'm going to actually put those back in there. I thought it still did that, but I want you to really see how easy it is just to click and drag and move things. In this process of uploading, you should get more comfortable with as time goes on. So I'm going to come back here, and just like that, I can make more changes if I wanted to. Blah, 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 blah. And I could just put this and put, hit yes, yes. And so that's the basic process. Hope this helps. Thanks.